Going to look at in today's lesson. We will start off by learning all there is to know about punctuation. You'll explore the different linking words and phrases, and you will gain confidence writing professional emails. So that's where we're going to end up at the end of this lesson. Then, of course, as always, we'll finish with our summary, a look ahead at the final lesson, and our Q&A. So, let's get started. No time like the present. And let's jump into punctuation. Because before we learn how to write, we need to know about punctuation. So I want to ask all of you, what is punctuation? Before we even look at it, what is punctuation? So let's get typing in nice and early into the chat boxes, and want all of you to tell me, what is punctuation? Who can tell me? Who's ahead of the curve and already knows what we're going to cover in this lesson? Okay, so here it says to do things on time. Okay, that is not punctuation, that's punctuality. Okay, that's being punctual, being on time. Good that you brought that up though. It's very good that you brought that up here to make sure no one else is mixed up because of it. So that is, being on time is punctuality, okay, not punctuation. Okay, so Varalakshmi has said things like the full stop and the comma. Safa says the rules to make written sentences meaningful. Okay, exactly, guys. So, an exact definition, punctuation is the name given to the marks such as full stop, comma, and brackets used in writing to separate sentences and their elements and to clarify meaning. So basically, they give meaning to the sentence. We need them when it's written. And let's look at the punctuation in this sentence. So look here, we've got a capital letter, a question mark, a comma, a full stop. These are all elements of punctuation. Exactly, Eduardo, exactly. So let's jump straight in, and don't worry, we'll start off with the easy ones. So the first one up, capital letters. Now I think we all know this. When do we use capital letters? There's a couple of different occasions where we should use a capital letter. So who can tell me some of these? When should we use capital letters? I see answers flooding in. Of course, this is one of the easiest ones. Exactly. Names coming in from a lot of people. The start of a sentence, okay? Abbreviations, countries. Very good, very good. So everyone knows these. So let's look here. We use capital letters at the start of a sentence to identify important nouns. So, exactly, proper nouns, Safa. So there we have the names. So, countries, days, months, people, okay? Important nouns. We also use capital letters in titles. So maybe the title of a book or the title of a film. And we use them for abbreviations. So abbreviations, of course, look at this second example here. I bought an LCD television yesterday. I bought an LCD television yesterday. That is an abbreviation. Liquid crystal display television. An LCD television. It's like VIP or USA or the UK. They are abbreviations. The other one here, the English for Beginners course is great. So English for Beginners is the title of the course. Or you could say it's the name of the course. It's the name of a course. So the English for Beginners course is great. Now, Hira is asking, EG is an abbreviation. Why is it not capitalized? So EG is slightly different. It's not exactly an abbreviation because it stands for a Latin phrase. It's not an English phrase. And we're actually going to look at EG later on in the lesson. So don't worry too much about that here. Next up we have the full stop, which is very simple. Used at the end of a sentence, or it's optional in abbreviations. So you could write LCD as L.C.D. Okay, same with VIP or USA, but it's optional. We don't need to. I usually don't because it looks messy. Okay, so these full stops are optional for abbreviations. Yeah, exactly, Goethe. MVP in volleyball and basketball and baseball and everything. So look at our example here. Punctuation is important in writing. Full stop. End of the sentence. Next up, we have the question mark. And it's just as easy as the full stop. We use it at the end of a question. Why are you studying English? A question I have asked you all many, many times. Why are you studying English? And instead of a full stop, we use the question mark. We end the question with a question mark. And next up we've got an exclamation mark. Now this one is a little bit different in that it is very informal. Okay? So, an exclamation mark is used to express strong emotion. So look at these sentences. Study smart, or Mark is a fantastic teacher. Okay, the exclamation mark replaces the full stop or the question mark. So we put it at the end of a sentence and we use it to express strong emotion. Okay, so if you are writing an email, we would rarely use exclamation marks. They are more for informal pieces. Informal. Okay, the exclamation mark. That's how you pronounce that. Exclamation mark. Now let's move on. And let's have a look at the comma. Our friend, the comma. So, we use the comma to separate lists. For example, I need milk, flour, and chocolate to make cookies. So we're using it to separate the items in a list. I need milk, flour, and chocolate to make cookies. 1, 2, 3 things. Or we can use it to separate sentences or clauses. The class is difficult, but I like it a lot. Okay, so you're separating two different sentences. The class is difficult, but I like it a lot. And that is what we use commas for. Now, can anyone tell me the name of this comma here? So we have 1, 2, 3 items in a list. And we can put a comma between the second, or well, the last and the second last item on the list. But we do not need to use this comma here. So you will see lists written that do not have this last comma. This is called the Oxford comma. Exactly, Safa. Very, very good. It's called the Oxford comma. And that is optional. Okay? So, a lot of people do not use this comma. They would have one comma between milk and flour, and then no other comma between flour and chocolate. There would be no comma here. But it's up to you. I always learned that we use the Oxford comma. It's just what I'm used to, and I think it looks neater. It makes you able to see each different element on the list. But it's completely up to you guys, okay? Just be consistent. Now, next up, we have the apostrophe. And the apostrophe is used for two things. What are the two things we use an apostrophe for? So one of them, of course, exactly, is the contraction of words. And what's the other thing we use the apostrophe for? Yes, possession, Lizette. Exactly, possession. So we use the apostrophe to show possession or for the contraction of words. So let's look at the possession. Shaw Academy's courses are the best. Shaw Academy's courses are the best. The courses that belong to Shaw Academy. Okay, possession. Or for the contraction of words. We'll be fluent in no time. We will becomes we'll. We put the apostrophe in where the omitted letters are. So where we drop the WI, that's where we put the apostrophe. We'll be fluent in no time. Now, next up, I saw Alan mention it earlier, is the colon, okay? And the colon can be used in two different ways. To introduce a long list. So, for example, I want the following items: pencils, pens, and paper. So, to introduce a long list, I want the following items: pencils, pens, and paper. Or to introduce the second part of a sentence which defines the first. For example, you know what to do, practice. You know what to do, practice. The second part of the sentence defines the first. This is what to do, practice. It defines the first. So you know what to do, practice. Defining the first part of the sentence, we use a colon. So that's one that we don't use too often. Next up, we have the brackets, or these are actually called parentheses, okay, parentheses. But usually we just refer to them as brackets. Brackets are actually the square ones, and these are parentheses. But people call these brackets, and that's fine. So we use brackets to introduce extra ideas or information. So if it's additional information, that's not necessary, okay, to add additional information. For example, I want you to bring me a burger, even if it's cold when you get here. So it's additional information. It's not too important to the sentence, but you want to include it. So I want you to bring me a burger, even if it's cold when you get here. In brackets, okay? Extra ideas or information. That's what we use brackets for. Now, moving on, we have quotation marks. And quotation marks, as the name implies, are used to quote direct speech. For example, the students are fantastic, said Mark. Okay, the students are fantastic, said Mark. That is direct speech from me. Of course, I say that all the time. The students are fantastic, said Mark. So it's quoting direct speech from me, so we use quotation marks. Or we also use it to denote the name of a book, a film, a song, etc. For example, my favorite movie is Aladdin. My favorite movie is Aladdin. We put the name of the movie or the book or the film or the song in quotation marks. Or sometimes you call these inverted commas. Inverted commas, okay? So, inverted commas. Now, I have Hira asking, why is there a comma after the full stop in this sentence? Now, that's a good question. That's a good question, Hira. And punctuation, when it comes to quotation marks, can be a bit tricky, okay? But look at this. The students are fantastic. That is a full quote. It's a full sentence. So it needs a full stop. But look, the full stop is inside the quotation marks. So this is still all contained inside the quotation marks, which means our sentence is not finished. That's why we have the comma. The students are fantastic, said Mark. This is the second part of the sentence, okay? So, the full stop here is inside the quotations because this is a full sentence. But for the sentence we are giving, it is only one part of the sentence. That's why we separate it with a comma. Okay, so very good question here, a very good question. And the final one we are going to look at is the hyphen. Now, when do we use a hyphen? And we use it for one very particular instance. The hyphen is used to join two or more words to make a compound noun or a compound adjective. Now, what is a compound noun or adjective? Very, very simple. A compound noun is a noun that is made up of two or more words. And it's the same with a compound adjective. It's an adjective made up of two or more words. So we have examples here. A compound noun, ex-manager. Okay? Ex-manager. A compound adjective, well-organized. Or as Safa said, well-built. Exactly. Well-built. Well-organized. Other compound nouns we have, for example, vice president. Okay? Vice president. So, these hyphens are used to join two or more words to make a compound noun or adjective. Now, here we have our little friend, and he's going to give us a sentence. Mark Kennelly, who's my English teacher, always says, practice makes perfect. Now, look at all of the punctuation in that sentence. Mark Kennelly, comma, who is my English teacher, comma. Now, we know that because it's a non-defining relative clause, so we separate it with commas. So Mark Kennelly, who is my English teacher, always says, colon, because this part defines the next part, practice makes perfect, with an exclamation mark, and it's direct quotes, and then we've got a full stop. So look at that sentence. It looks very difficult, but when you break it down, we can see how to use each piece of punctuation and why each piece is used. So, this is the type of sentences that you will all be able to write when you've mastered this punctuation, when you have really learned how to use these elements. So let's look at a sentence here, and I want to know what is missing from the following sentence. Next year, I would like to visit Brazil to see my brother. Now, is it missing a comma, a capital letter, an exclamation mark, a hyphen, or a colon? What do we think? And I saw a lot of people writing the answer in before I even gave you the options, so maybe it was a bit too easy. Lizette, I think, was the first one I saw with the correct answer. It's, of course, a capital letter. And where should the capital letter be? Goethe has already said it anyway. It should be in Brazil, for the country Brazil. Next year, I would like to visit Brazil to see my brother. Now, one thing to point out, Goethe has spelt Brazil with an S, okay? Now, in English, we spell Brazil with a Z. Now, I know in Portuguese, it is spelt with an S, but remember, we are using English, so we use the English names for countries and the English spelling. So it's a very small thing, but just be careful about things like that. Just like we don't call Germany Deutschland, we call it Germany because it's the English name. Okay? Even Ireland. Ireland is the English name for our country. The Irish name for it is Éire. Era, E-I-R-E. But the English name is Ireland. Okay, so we need to make sure we're using the English name, even if it's your own country and it sounds strange. Okay, so we've looked at punctuation. That is one thing that is going to help us to write professional emails. But we also need another tool to help us, and that tool is linking words or phrases. Okay, linking words or phrases. Now, let's not worry too much about it yet, because we're going to explain. What are they? Linking words and phrases are used, as you can expect from the name, linking words and phrases. They are used to link phrases, sentences, or paragraphs. So, like we saw earlier, when we have a sentence separated with a comma, we usually have a linking word or phrase after. So we had but, okay? We had the sentence, this class is very difficult, comma, but I like it a lot. But is a linking word, okay? So they help the reader to progress from one idea to the next and make your writing more logical, okay? They help the reader to progress from one idea to the next and make your writing more logical. Now let's look at some examples of linking words and phrases. And they fall into different categories depending on what we want to use them for. So let's have a look at our first category, and it's for sequence. So if we want to give a logical sequence to what we are writing, if we have lots of different paragraphs, what's the easiest way to give sequence? To remind the reader if they're on maybe the first point or the last point. We have firstly, secondly, thirdly, etc. So your first paragraph would begin with firstly, then your second paragraph would begin with secondly, and so on. And this gives sequence to your writing. It makes it more logical and easier for the reader to understand. They know when a new point has been introduced. Then of course we can finish up. We can say next, last, or finally. So let's look at some examples. Firstly, I would like to discuss X. Secondly, we will touch on Y. Finally, we will look forward to Z. Okay, so straight away you can see there's three different things being talked about. Firstly, I'd like to discuss X. Secondly, we'll touch on Y. Finally, we'll look forward to Z. Now, what other linking words do we have for sequence? Well, we've got another. If we want to finish, we've got in conclusion or to summarize. So let's look at an example here. To summarize, Shaw Academy is now the best in the world. Okay, so with this little phrase, to summarize, we know, okay, Mark has talked about all of his points and now he is summarizing them. It's linking all of the previous points to the end. To summarize, Shaw Academy is now the best in the world. Or we can say, to conclude. So to conclude, I want to wish you all a happy new year. So look, these three are all used at the end of a piece. In conclusion, to summarize, to conclude. So to conclude, I want to wish you all a happy new year. To conclude means to finish or to sum up in a nutshell. Exactly, Sufa or Safa, sorry. Now that was sequence, but what about addition? Well, what do we think? What's the most obvious linking word for addition when we want to add in another point? What is the most obvious linking word that we use in all of English? Exactly, Eman was the first one. And, okay? And. Very, very simple. We use it in almost every sentence. But we can also say In addition or additionally, so let's look. You have not paid your rent yet. In addition, you already owe me money. So you're adding another point. You have not paid your rent yet. In addition to this, you already owe me money. Of course, we could say as well as this, you already owe me money. Next up, we've got furthermore or moreover. So, Bolt won the 100 meters and furthermore broke the world record. So, Bolt won the 100 meters, but not only that, and furthermore broke the world record. Or we can use moreover. The report is badly presented. Moreover, it has mistakes. Okay? So again, we're adding another point. We're adding something in. Then we've got also, we've got to, and we've got as well as. So many of these are very common and you've heard them all before. I'm sure you've all used them before, but you may not have understood exactly what they are being used for. They're being used for addition, the addition of another point or another clause or another sentence. Now, the next one we're going to look at is comparison. Now, what do we have for comparison? What linking words and phrases? Well, we've got similarly or similar to. So let's look at a sentence. Alex likes to tell jokes. Similarly, her best friend does too. Okay? So it's a comparison. Similarly, her best friend does too. Familiar to, exactly, Shaima. Very good example. Next up, we've got in comparison to or in comparison with. So both of these can be used interchangeably. In comparison to, in comparison with. They're both the exact same. In comparison to my father, I had a very easy life. And I think that's probably true for most of us. In comparison to my father, I had a very easy life. Next up, we've got compared to or compared with. So it's used the exact same way. We could say compared to my father or compared with my father, I had a very easy life. Next up, we've got likewise. Okay, so look at this one. I love my wife. Likewise, she is my best friend. Okay, I love my wife. Likewise, she is my best friend. Or then we've got some more informal ones. Like and as. Okay, they would be the more informal ones that we use in conversation. Okay, Safa is asking, is there a difference between the use of compared to and compared with? No, they are the exact same, Safa. They're the exact same. Okay? So, like and as, they would be the ones we use in conversation. But don't be afraid to use these in conversation. There's no problem with that. They can just sound a little bit formal. Now, we looked at comparison. And what's the opposite of comparison? We have contrast, okay? Contrast. So, comparison is saying two things are the same. Contrast is saying two things are different. So, we've got however. And let's look here. I like the course. However, it can be a bit difficult. So, I like it. However, it can be a bit difficult. Now, what is the most common one we use for contrast? A more informal way of saying however. What do we think is the next one? So an informal way of saying however. Exactly, guys. But, like we said at the start of this section. But. So that is the most common one we use. But there are a lot more. We've got although or even though. So, although he is rich, he lives in a small house. Contrast. And we could use even though the exact same. Even though he is rich, he lives in a small house. We can also use yet, whereas. So let's have a look at whereas. My father is Irish, whereas my mother is English. And that is actually true for me. My father is Irish, whereas my mother is English. So contrast, it's different. And of course we've got in contrast to, and we've also got despite or in spite of. I see a couple of you said that. So despite the rain, she walked to the station. And we could use in spite of in the exact same way. In spite of the rain, she walked to the station. In spite of the rain, she walked to the station. Eduardo has said, on the other hand. Exactly, you could also use that. So, on the one hand, he is rich. On the other hand, he lives in a small house. So that's a very good example. That's a very good example, Eduardo. Of course you can use that. There are many more of these, guys. I'm just giving you some examples so you can remember them and add them into your writing, okay? There are, of course, a lot more of these. Next up, we have reason. And the most common one we use for reason, because. So, I was unable to send a report because the system was down. Very simple. We always use because. We've also got for, since. So, for example, I could not print the papers since I did not receive them. Okay, and for can be used in the exact same way as since. I could not print the papers for I did not receive them. Then we've got as. I could not print the papers as I did not receive them. Or because of. Because of the traffic, I missed our meeting. Okay, so they are all very simple ones. Reason is very easy. And what's the opposite of reason? Result. So what do we use for the result? We can use so. I arrived early so I could help with the setup. Okay, result. I arrived early so I could help with the setup. And if we swap this around, I could help with the setup because I arrived early. So these are the opposites, okay? Reason, result. We've also got thus, therefore, and hence. And these three are all used in the exact same manner. A storm is coming, hence the flights have been cancelled. A storm is coming, therefore the flights have been cancelled. A storm is coming, thus the flights have been cancelled. These three are all used the exact same. Next up we've got due to or as a result of. So prices were reduced, as a result sales increased. Okay, prices were reduced, as a result sales increased. And we've got consequently, as many of you have said. We are expanding, consequently there will be more jobs. Okay, we are expanding, as a result of this, or consequently, there will be more jobs. So that is result and reason. So these words are really going to help your written English because vocabulary comes across massively in written English because it's there in front of the reader and they can see if you're using the same words over and over again. If there's too many ideas, it can get confusing, so we need to structure them. We need to link them logically and give coherence with these words. Now let's move into the last piece of this section. And just like Hira asked earlier, this man wants to know, what is e.g.? Mark always uses e.g. in his slides. What is e.g.? Who knows? e.g. is used as a linking word or phrase when we want to give examples, okay? So who can tell me what e.g. stands for? What is e.g. short for? bonus points for anyone who gets it exactly right. It is not English, it is a Latin phrase, okay? And it doesn't seem like anyone knows it, or they're very slow at typing. It stands for exempli gratia, okay? Exempli gratia. And that is Latin for the sake of example, okay? So it literally translates to for example. So it stands for exempli gratia, but you don't need to know that because it's not English. You can just use e.g. or you can simply write for example. So e.g. is used to give one or more possible examples. We have many popular sports in Ireland. For example, rugby and soccer. But there is other linking phrases for examples. It's not just these two. We can say for instance, such as, and like, which of course is more informal. So there are many irregular verbs in English, such as be. So we can see e.g. and for example are not the only ways to give examples. Now, so we know e.g. is used to give one or more possible examples. But what does i.e. mean? Can anyone tell me that? i.e. or what is it used for? What is i.e. used for? So e.g. is used for examples. i.e. is used for people are already asking about i.e. before this even came up. i.e. is used for explanations, okay? And again, it is a Latin phrase. i.e. stands for id est, which translates to that is to say, that is to say. So it's to give clarification or explanation. So look, i.e. clarifies something, providing more precise information. So, I support Arsenal. That is to say, they are my favourite team. Unfortunately for me, because they are terrible and Wenger needs to leave. But I don't want to go on a rant about Arsenal at the moment. So, I support Arsenal. That is to say, they are my favourite team. i.e. they are my favourite team. So, i.e. that is and that is to say are all the exact same. They can be used in the exact same way. But we can also say, in other words, Mark is knowledgeable and funny. In other words, the perfect teacher. So they are all used in the same way for further explanation. Okay, so exempli gratia, id est. You don't need to know them, but it's a nice bit of trivia. So just remember the difference. e.g. is used to give one or more possible examples, but i.e. clarifies something. It gives you more precise information. It gives you clarification. So that's the difference between the two, and that's what they stand for. Now let's have a question to make sure you're all still with me. Yes, Safa, it is Latin also. It is Latin. Because lots of the European languages come from Latin or have Latin bases. So if you ever look at French, Italian, Spanish, they are all very closely related to Latin. English, not so much, but we still have a lot of Latin words. Okay? So, which of the following sentences is correct? Correct. In conclusion, today I am going to talk about pronouns. I don't have much money, e.g. I'm happy. Your grammar is terrible, moreover your vocabulary is great. Despite starting with no English, he was the best in the class. So which of these is correct? Only one of them is using a linking word or phrase in the correct way. And lots of people are writing number 1, number 3. There's lots of different answers coming in here, guys, which means people are confused. I have seen every answer, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But Lizette, Christelle, Olga, yes, you guys are perfectly right. It is number 4, guys. Number 4 is the only one being used correctly. Exactly, Tagreed. Well done. So let's look at number 1. In conclusion, today I'm going to talk about pronouns. We can't say in conclusion at the start. Today I'm going to talk about pronouns. That's an introduction. So we cannot say in conclusion. What about this one? I don't have much money, e.g. I'm happy. This is not an example of not having much money. So that doesn't work. Your grammar is terrible. Moreover, your vocabulary is great. This is a linking word for addition. We need a linking word for contrast here. Your grammar is terrible. However, your vocabulary is great. So those 3 are all wrong. This is the correct one. So I can see Alan as well. Alia, Eduardo, Sahar, Nasheen all got that one correct as well. So do you all understand that now? Why this is the only one that is correct? I should hope so. Shaima has a big oops written in. Exactly, Shaima. Oops. You need to think a bit more. Now, we've covered punctuation. We've covered linking words and phrases. What is left to do? Look at how to write emails. We have our building blocks. Now we can start putting our emails together, okay? We can start putting our emails together. So, how many of you, before we even check this, how many of you have to write emails in English? Whether it's for work or university, college, anything. How many of you have to write emails in English? So get typing into the chat box. Let's see just how important this is. Lizette says yes. Maria says I do. Safa does as well. Exactly. Christine has to as well. That's no problem. Okay, Linda, that's no problem. That's no problem at all that you're late. We did have changes. Our clocks went forward over the weekend. So if you are arriving late, that's no problem at all. Just make sure to catch up in the recording. Our clocks went forward at the weekend, so there is a bit of confusion. Christelle has to write emails in English. Eman has to write emails in English. Almost everyone does, okay? Lilani says every day, okay? So, let's look at writing emails. And first, let's look at my top tips for writing emails. So every day, 205 billion emails are sent and received worldwide. Now, a lot of these are informal, but the majority of these are for business purposes. So whether you're emailing someone you work with or you're applying for a new job, here are some general rules, okay? As I said, my top tips. So, know your tone. So what I mean by that, know who you are emailing. So, is it a formal email? Is it an informal email? And that will let you know how you will word the email. So let's look at some examples, okay? Emails are less formal than letters in general. So it's fine to start your email with hi or good morning or hello, okay? But sometimes if it's a bit more formal, it could be better to write dear, okay? So just know your tone depending on who you are emailing. Next up, it's all about the titles, okay? Everything about an email is short and to the point and quite informal. So, we use first names in business emails almost all of the time. you would use someone's first name. And then remember the subject box. In the subject box, it needs to tell the receiver exactly what is included in the email. Okay? So, for the subject box, use short, clear text, and there is no need for full sentences. It should explain exactly what the email is about. Next up, use a professional email address. Please, please, please use a professional email address. Not beerlover99@gmail.com. Just use something simple and professional. Mark Kennelly at shawacademy.com. Okay, something very simple like that. Next, limit the small talk. Okay, small talk can help build relationships, but emails are supposed to be short or to the point. So try and limit it to "I hope you are well" or "how are things." That is enough small talk for an email. Then get to the point. Next up, keep it simple. Like I said, emails are meant to be written, sent, and read quickly. Okay? To only include the important details. That is the point of emails. Next up, proofread every message. So, every single message before you send it, proofread it. To proofread means to read over something again and make sure that the spelling and grammar is correct. I have to do it, so you guys especially have to do it. I proofread every email before I send it. So, as non-native speakers, you guys definitely should be doing it. So, check before sending. And the final tip, guys, never use caps lock. Okay, never use caps lock in an email because it looks like you're shouting. Okay, even if you want to highlight something, you shouldn't use caps lock because it looks very informal and rude. It looks like you're shouting. So never use caps lock. Now, they're the top tips. So let's move into writing emails. And here we have a common email interface. Now, let's get set up first. Who are we emailing this to? So our to box, that's who we're sending it to. And we'll send it to markkennelly@shawacademy.com. So let's send an email to me. Then we've got CC. And CC stands for carbon copy. So that means it will also be sent to anyone in here. So in CC, I will put English@shawacademy.com. So it goes to the whole faculty, the whole English faculty. And don't forget, we've also got BCC. Now, what is BCC? It stands for blind carbon copy. And this means that anyone you BCC will receive the email, but no one else will know. Okay, so blind carbon copy. And then we've got the subject. And the subject is the point of the email, or the title of the email. So you want the receiver to know exactly what the email will be about before they even open it. So it needs to be short and snappy, and it doesn't need to be a full sentence. So we'll say English course details. Okay, so it's not a full sentence, just keywords, English course details. Now, we're set up for our email. Let's move on. And let's start with the greeting. Now, emails, as we said, are generally relatively informal. So it's perfectly okay to start with "Hi Mark." Okay? Hi Mark. No matter who you're writing to. If you want to be a bit more formal, you can say "Dear Mark." Okay? Dear Mark. And if it is extremely formal, you can say "Dear Mr. Kennelly." Okay, "Dear Mr. Kennelly," but that is very formal. Now, what about our titles? Let's have a look. We've got Mr., which we use for a man. Miss, which we use for an unmarried woman. Mrs, which we use for a married woman. And Ms, which we use for a woman which we don't know if she's married or unmarried. But what I would like to point out, this is very old-fashioned. It's very old-fashioned. So I know many of you will have learned this before, but it's very old-fashioned. And nowadays, we don't use Miss and we don't use Mrs. We just use Mr. or Ms. Because we don't care if they are married or not. The only time we would use Miss or Mrs. is if you are replying to an email and they have given one of these titles themselves. Other than that, just use Mr. or Ms. But it's all very formal. It's all very formal. And what if you don't know their name? If you don't know their name, two nice ones. Dear Sir / Madam. That's a very good one if you don't know their name. Or to whom it may concern. That's one of my favorites. To whom it may concern. If you don't know the name of the person you are writing to, that's a great one to remember. To whom it may concern. Now, for this email, you're emailing me. So, what greeting should we use? What do you think, guys? Which one will we use? Yeah, I agree. I think we'll just stick with Hi Mark. It's friendly, it's not too formal. Exactly. Hi Mark. That's how I'd like to be emailed. I wouldn't like Dear Mr. Kennelly. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. Thanking the recipient. So if you're replying to someone, you should begin with a line of thanks. Okay? Or if someone has replied to one of your emails, you can say thanks for your quick reply or thanks for getting back to me. Okay? So we should always thank the recipient. So if they have sent the first email, thank you for contacting me. If they have emailed you back, thank you for the quick reply or thanks for getting back to me. So what we'll do, we'll use thank you for contacting me. Okay, let's assume that I have contacted all of the students, which I have before the course. Now, we've said thank you. That's as nice as we need to be. Now it's time to state our purpose. So, I am writing to inquire about. I am writing in reference to. I am writing to you regarding. Okay? So, straight away we need to state our purpose. Why are you writing the email? So, what we're going to use, I am writing in reference to the English course which is beginning next week. Okay? I am writing in reference to the English course which is beginning next week. Now when I receive this email, after the first line, okay, we're talking about the English course. Now, what do they want to know? I would like to know, or could you tell me? So, very simple. We'll go with I would like to know. I would like to know if we will have an exam to complete at the end. So there we go. There is the body of the email. We have asked what we need to know. Because emails need to be short and to the point. This is it. This is why emails are so beautiful. They're so brilliant. We don't need to be too complicated or confusing or add in too many words or sentences. So next up, we're going to add our closing remarks, okay? So before you end your email, it's polite to thank your reader one more time and add something polite, okay? So you might start with, thank you for your consideration, or thanks in advance. That's one I use a lot. I look forward to hearing from you. Or, this is a nice one, if you have any further questions, do not hesitate to contact me. So these are nice ones to use. So for our email, I think I'll use this. I look forward to hearing from you. because of course you look forward to hearing from me, your educator. Now, sometimes you may need to attach something to the email, attach a document or attach a picture. For this, we simply mention it at the end of the email. So let's look at attachments. Please find attached X. I have attached X. Please see the attached X. So very simple. If you've attached something, you just add in a little line at the end. Now, I have not attached anything, so I don't need any of these sentences. But any of those are perfectly okay if you attach something. And finally, we need a polite sign-off. Okay, so an appropriate closing. So you can say best regards, you can say sincerely, thank you. There are many of different ones you can use. Best wishes or cheers if it's a little bit more informal. Okay, so some of the most common ones: best regards, kind regards, sincerely, thank you. Okay, so there's some of the most common ones. I usually use kind regards. That's my favorite one to use. Kind regards, and then your name, Jennifer. Okay, so it was Jennifer sending this email. If the email is to your friend and it's a little less formal, you could use best wishes or cheers. Cheers. Or go back to lesson 6 and use cheerio. Cheerio, okay? So there, we have gone from the start to the end of a professional email. A perfectly professional email. Short and concise. So what did you think about that? Was that helpful? Lots of yeses coming in. Lots of people saying this is what they needed. Well, before we finish, let's have a question. So which of the following is unprofessional for an email? Kind regards. I hope all is well. Please find attached. Dearest Joe. Dear Sir / Madam. Which of these is unprofessional? Which of these should not be used in a professional email? What do we think? What do we think? Not number 2, Lizette. Not number 2. Not number 3. Christelle and Shaima and Tagreed. Now lots of people as well. Christelle was the first one. Dearest Joe. Okay, if it's a professional email, we would not use dearest. Okay? Dearest is something you say to your wife or your husband or someone you're in love with, or maybe your mother or your grandmother or something. But you would not use dearest in a professional email, okay? People are blaming it on pressing the wrong button, I'm sure. Lizette said finger trouble. I trust you, Lizette. I trust you. So the rest of these are all perfectly acceptable for a professional email. Now, great lesson, all of you. So let's just recap on what we covered. You learned all there is to know about punctuation. So make sure to check your summary notes so you have a copy of the exact rules for all of the punctuation. You explored the different linking words and phrases. And you gained confidence writing professional emails. Okay, so that